My name was Elara Vance, and as of this morning, I am officially, legally, and socially deceased. My funeral is currently underway in a historic chapel on the Upper East Side, where the air is thick with the scent of Casablanca lilies and unspoken relief. The man who orchestrated my death is at the pulpit, his voice a masterful blend of grief and gravitas. His sister, who helped draft the script, sits in the front pew, a vision in vintage black Chanel, dabbing a dry eye with a monogrammed handkerchief. I watch them now from the back seat of an unremarkable town car, half a block down the rain-slicked street. The tinted window is my proscenium arch. Their performance is my private viewing. They are burying an empty box today, a symbol of their final, triumphant solution. They believe they have buried their problem. They believe they have buried me. The irony is so exquisite it almost tastes sweet. They haven't buried a thing. They have fertilized the ground for a harvest of their own ruin. I am no longer Elara Vance, the silent wife. I am a ghost now, and I have brought a ledger with me. Every smile that hid a sneer, every condescending pat, every cold, calculated decision they made at my expense is an entry. And as of today, the balance is due, with interest. For 7 years, I was the polished, public-facing cornerstone of the Vance fortune. I was the wife, the face in the society pages at the opening nights and the charity galas, the arm candy at political fundraisers. I married Julian Vance not for something as fleeting and volatile as love, but for the solid, immovable weight of a legacy. I traded my own respectable but modest name for one etched in stone and gold. I believed in the stability it promised. What I learned, slowly and then all at once, was that the Vance legacy wasn't built on stone. It was built on quicksand, hidden under a meticulously manicured lawn. The corruption wasn't loud or brutish. It was quiet. It was the way Julian would discuss a senator's price over dinner as casually as the vintage of the wine. It was the way his sister, Celeste, would evaluate every person in a room, assigning them a monetary or social value with a single glance. It was the presence of Marcus Thorne, the family's legal consigliere, a man whose eyes were the temperature of a glacier, who looked through me as if I were a pane of glass, insignificant, transparent, fragile. The horror of my life was not found in raised voices or physical threats. It was in the exquisite politeness of my erasure. It was in the way my opinions on the renovation of the Hamptons house were met with a patient smile and then utterly ignored. It was the way my suggestion for a charitable cause was acknowledged and then filed away to die in a drawer. It was the slow, constant pressure of existing as a beautiful, useless object in a house that was a museum to their power. I was living in a gilded cage, and they were, with infinite courtesy, removing the oxygen. I was being suffocated by privilege. The beginning of my end started on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Julian was at a board meeting. The house was silent, a tomb of expensive things. I was in his private study, a room that smelled of leather, old paper, and arrogance, looking for a specific letter opener, a jade-handled antique he was fond of. His large partner's desk was a fortress of mahogany. The bottom left drawer, the one he always kept locked, was slightly ajar. A corner of a thick file had snagged on the lip, preventing it from closing fully. A sliver of white in the dark wood. Call it fate, call it carelessness, call it their second mistake. I pulled the drawer open. The file was labeled simply, Project Peregrine. Inside was not a business prospectus. It was a death warrant. My death warrant. There were actuarial tables, financial projections that soared dramatically upon a hypothetical terminal event involving me. Life insurance policies with numbers so vast they were comical, taken out by Julian over the years. There was a psychiatric evaluation, dated 6 months prior, diagnosing me with a severe, medication-resistant depressive disorder with latent suicidal ideation. It was signed by Dr. Alistair Reed, whose embossed seal looked authentic. I had never met Dr. Reed in my life. Paperclipped to it was a photocopy of a prescription for a potent benzodiazepine, made out to me, filled at a discreet pharmacy downtown. Beneath that, clipped with cold efficiency, was a short list of private security firms that specialized in discrete asset protection and incident management. And finally, a single, typed memo from Marcus Thorne to Julian. Upon event trigger, clauses 7b through 12e of the Faraday Trust will activate, consolidating voting control. Media narrative attached. Recommend leveraging the pre-existing psychiatric profile for sympathy pivot. I stood there, the cold from the parquet floor seeping through my thin silk slippers, holding the blueprint of my own murder. This was not a crime of passion, a hot-blooded moment of violence. This was a corporate merger, a hostile takeover of my very existence. Elara Vance was a subsidiary that had outlived its usefulness, and the board, Julian, Celeste, Marcus, had voted for a quiet, profitable liquidation. They weren't planning to kill me. They were planning to retire me, with extreme prejudice. The method was clear. A tragic, too-young socialite, overwhelmed by the pressures of her luminous life, found in her marble bathroom an empty pill bottle by her side. It would be a one-week story. A blot of sadness on the social calendar before the machine of their lives ground on, billions richer and unburdened by my inconvenient presence. A strange, supernatural calm descended upon me. The fear, the constant, low-grade hum of anxiety I'd lived with for years, evaporated. It was burned away, incinerated by a new fuel, a cold, pure, and utterly clarifying fury. They had made their critical error. They had underestimated the raw material they were trying to discard. They saw the polished finish, the social smile, the compliant wife. They never bothered to look for the foundation. I was not born into this world of old money and older cruelties. I was the daughter of a pragmatic engineer and a sharp-eyed librarian. I understood systems. I understood leverage. I understood that to defeat a story as perfectly crafted as theirs, I would have to become a better author. So I decided to give them their tragedy. But I would be the director, the set designer, and the star. And my performance would be my passport to freedom. The next 48 hours were a study in meticulous artifice. I filled the forged prescription at a pharmacy across town. I purchased a bottle of the small-batch Kentucky bourbon Julian favored. I spent an evening not in despair, but in study, watching old films, analyzing the physical language of defeat. The slump of a shoulder, the vacant focus of the eyes, the tremble in a hand holding a glass. I became a method actress preparing for the role of a lifetime, my own corpse. On a Thursday night, with the house staff dismissed, I set the stage in my en-suite bathroom. I scattered the pills on the Carrara marble counter like morbid confetti. I poured 2 fingers of bourbon into the crystal tumbler, took a single sip for the scent, and left the rest. I emptied the majority of the pills into the toilet and flushed, leaving perhaps a dozen in the bottle. I created a masterpiece of a suicide note on my tablet. It spoke of loneliness in crowded rooms, of the unbearable weight of the spotlight, of a soul feeling hollow despite being surrounded by every material thing. It was full of the very emotions they had inflicted upon me, weaponized and handed back to them as my final testimony. I left my phone on the vanity, my everyday pearl necklace beside it, a spritz of my signature perfume in the air. I left all the trappings of Elara Vance. Then, I took only what was mine: a burner phone purchased with cash, the simple diamond pendant my mother left me, sentiment over carats, and a slim, encrypted hard drive containing every damning financial record, every whispered recording, every secret I'd meticulously gathered over 7 years of silent observation. Just before dawn, I walked out of the Hampton estate not through the grand front doors, but through the service entrance used by the groundskeepers. I was a ghost in a nondescript gray coat, carrying a small duffel, stepping out of a life and into the liminal space of my own making. I drove a rented sedan to a motel 20 miles away, a place that took cash and asked no questions. At 10:17 a.m., I turned on the small, flickering television. The breaking news banner was already scrolling. Tragedy STRIKES VANCE family. My face, smiling vacantly from last season's Met Gala, filled the screen. The housekeeper's heart-wrenching discovery. The distraught husband is being comforted by friends. The narrative had been swallowed whole, just as I knew it would be. Elara Vance was dead. The curtain had fallen on Act 1. Act 2 began in a one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn with a view of the iron web of the bridge. The air smelled of other people's cooking, dust, and concrete, smells of real life, uncurated and honest. It was the most authentic space I'd inhabited in a decade. This was the nerve center, the command post for what I privately termed the Dead Socialite Project. My arsenal was not guns, but gigabytes. with passwords I'd quietly harvested over the years. Julian, for all his cunning, used his yacht's name for everything. With audio feeds from microphones embedded in the settings of heirloom brooches I'd left behind. With a small, expensive, and utterly discreet team of digital forensic specialists and private investigators paid from a network of offshore accounts I'd been slowly, patiently leeching funds into, I began my work. I tuned into the frequency of their lives. The information that flowed back was a torrent, a sewer of their true selves. It wasn't just about my insurance policy. That was a petty side bet. This was the main game. Charities they chaired were hollow shells, funds diverted to shell companies. City officials were on secret retainers to fast-track permits and bury violations. Their venture capital firm engaged in rampant insider trading, using private jet itineraries to guess mergers. The Vance fortune was a beautiful, rotting tree, its roots tangled in every kind of filth. My cold fury settled into a hard, diamond-sharp focus. I would not rage against this machine. I would reverse its gears. I would use its own mechanisms to grind itself to dust. I would administer justice with the quiet, precise click of a keyboard. Celeste, with her cathedral of vanity, was the obvious first target. Her entire existence was a performance for an audience of her peers. Her currency was admiration, envy, and invitation. So I would make her bankrupt. I didn't just leak her insider trading scheme to the authorities. That was too clean, too impersonal. I anonymously delivered the entire package, emails, spreadsheets, transaction records, to the gossip blog run by her most bitter rival, a woman she'd publicly humiliated at a luncheon. But the data was dry. I needed spectacles. So I included a trove of private, unguarded photos. Celeste in a late-night rage, her face twisted and ugly. Celeste passed out on a divan at a private club, makeup smeared. Celeste receiving an illegal, off-label injectable treatment in a backroom clinic. The blog post wasn't an exposé, it was a socially sanctioned murder. The comments section was a feeding frenzy. Her close friends issued vague statements of shock and concern. The charities she championed asked for her resignation. The SEC launched a formal investigation, but the social death sentence was swifter and far more final. I watched, via a tiny camera in her foyer chandelier, as she read the blog on her tablet. I saw the color drain from her face, saw her hand fly to her mouth, not in grief, but in sheer, unadulterated terror of the obscurity that now yawned before her. She didn't need a prison cell. She was sentenced to a lifetime of irrelevance. For a woman like Celeste, it was a fate more terrifying than any jail. Marcus Thorne presented a different challenge. He was a creature of shadows and legalese, a man who built fortresses of fine print. He had no social reputation to destroy. His power was his impenetrability, his reputation for being the cleanest dirty shirt in the room. A direct assault would bounce off his armor, so I didn't attack the armor. I evaporated the ground beneath his feet. I spent weeks collating every crime, every instance of witness tampering, every concealed document, every instance of suborning perjury into a single, impeccably organized digital dossier. It was a work of art in its clarity. I then created a ghost, a fabricated, disgruntled junior associate who had seen too much. Using this persona, I sent the decryption key for the dossier, along with a detailed, annotated index, to 3 places simultaneously: the district attorney's public corruption unit, the FBI's financial crimes section, and the disciplinary committee of the New York State Bar Association. The beauty of it was its passivity. I didn't accuse, I presented. The authorities didn't have to dig. The evidence was served on a silver platter, its provenance carefully obscured. The fallout was swift and absolute. His biggest clients, fearing contagion, severed ties overnight. His law firm partners, in a panic, voted to freeze his assets and suspend his partnership, citing the ongoing investigations. The last image I had of him was a grainy shot from a news camera outside a federal courthouse. Marcus Thorne, his $5,000 suit rumpled, his face ashen, was being led into a black sedan, his hands cuffed in front of him. The fortress hadn't been stormed. It had been condemned and declared a crime scene. Then there was Julian, my husband, the sun around which this corrupt solar system had revolved. He didn't fear social exile like Celeste. He didn't fear prison like Marcus. He He believed his money could insulate him from anything but the most egregious scandal. His vulnerability was more profound. His identity was the empire itself. The Vance name, the legacy, the power. So I didn't attack him. I dissolved his kingdom from within. My death was the key. I had discovered, buried in the archives of the old family law firm they thought I'd never access, the original, unredacted version of his father's will. The old man, Charles Vance, for all his flaws, had possessed a shred of decency, and I suspect, saw in me a kindred spirit trapped in his son's gilded world. He had inserted a series of Byzantine, but ironclad clauses designed to protect the moral integrity of the trust if any spousal beneficiary died under suspicious or unnatural circumstances. These clauses, which Marcus had deliberately suppressed from the probate filing, triggered upon my untimely demise. While Julian was on cable news, his voice breaking as he spoke of his profound loss, a silent, automated legal process was awakening. Trusts governing key holdings shifted control to independent fiduciary boards. Liquidity in his main investment funds was frozen for a morality review. Voting rights in the family conglomerate were temporarily transferred to a committee of elder statesmen from rival families, men who despised Julian. He became, overnight, a king without a crown, a general without an army. He could see his empire, but he could no longer command it. The vultures in his own executive circles, smelling the blood in the water, began internal coups, seizing divisions and declaring autonomy. His own people were eating him alive, and I had simply opened the cage door. I decided a final audience was necessary, not for him, for me, for closure, for the sheer cinematic punctuation of it. I still had the keys to the Manhattan penthouse. I went on a night when I knew he would be alone, drowning in the silence of his failure. I moved through the cavernous, dark rooms, past the abstract art that had always felt cold to me. I found him in the library, slumped in his father's old leather wingback chair, a bottle of Macallan on the desk beside him, half gone. The room reeked of peat smoke, expensive alcohol, and despair. He saw me first as a distortion in the reflection of the window, a shadow against the glittering grid of the city. He turned slowly, his movements thick with drink. "Elara," the word was a slurry whisper, choked with disbelief. "No, it's the stress, the drink. Seeing things." I stepped forward, into the dim pool of light from the brass desk lamp. I let him look. Let the reality of me, alive, composed, utterly real, shatter the last delusion he clung to. I watched the journey on his face. Confusion, denial, a flicker of superstitious fear. And then, finally, the crushing, comprehensive understanding of the truth. I wasn't a hallucination. I was the consequence. "Why?" he rasped, his voice breaking. The entitlement was still there, beneath the ruin. "The money, you would have had everything, you never wanted for anything." I remained silent. Words were for negotiations, for explanations between people who inhabited the same moral universe. We did not. My silence was my verdict. I walked to the desk, the very piece of furniture where I had found the evidence of my planned erasure. From the pocket of my coat, I took out the last physical remnant of my old life, my wedding ring. A 7-carat, D-flawless Marquise diamond, a shackle of breathtaking beauty and coldness. I held it for a moment, feeling its absurd weight. Then I placed it deliberately in the center of his polished desk blotter. The sound was tiny, yet it seemed to echo in the vast, quiet room like a gavel strike. It was the period at the end of their sentence. I looked at him then, meeting his bloodshot eyes. I made sure my gaze was empty, not of anger or gloating or even pity, just empty, a clean, wiped slate. That, I realized, was my ultimate victory. He had been rendered meaningless. He was no longer my husband, my enemy, or even a person of interest. He was just a thing in a room, a concluded business matter. I turned and walked back the way I had come, my footsteps soundless on the Persian rug. I didn't look back. The sound that followed me out into the hall wasn't a curse or a shout. It was a wet, ragged, utterly broken sob. It was the sound of a world ending. The aftermath, as I observe it from a great and careful distance, is a quiet symphony of ruin. Celeste sold her remaining jewelry and fled to a tax haven principality, where she lives on a strict, humiliating allowance from a trust she cannot control, her name now a synonym for tasteless scandal. Marcus Thorne, in a desperate bid for leniency, turned state's evidence against dozens of his former clients, unraveling a web of corruption that reached into City Hall. He will be an old man when he leaves his minimum security prison, his reputation and license ash. Julian held on for a few more months, a figurehead trying to command a ghost ship. Finally, he sold the penthouse. The Vance holdings were dismantled, the valuable pieces absorbed by competitors, the toxic assets left to wither. The family offices are closed. The name remains on a few old buildings, a ghost of itself. And me. Elara Vance is still dead. She has an elegant headstone in a green cemetery upstate. I visit it sometimes. It's a useful monument, a reminder of the woman I had to kill so that I could live. The woman I am now lives in a sun-filled house by the sea in a country with no extradition treaty. She has a name that belongs only to her. She reads novels cover to cover without interruption. She learns to cook, badly and with great joy. She feels the salt wind on her skin and does not think about sunscreen or paparazzi. The money I secured, my rightful share, extracted with the precision of a surgeon, is more than enough. It is freedom, not an anchor. The ghost, at long last, is at peace, because I have learned that true revenge has nothing to do with the heat of hatred. It is a cold equation. It is the restoration of balance on a cosmic scale. They tried to bury me in a narrative of fragility and madness, so I buried them in the cold, unassailable truth of their own corruption. I didn't just survive their plot, I consumed it. I digested their malice and their greed, and used it as the energy to forge my own liberation. I was their victim. Then I became their auditor, their judge, and the silent executor of their estate. The sentence I passed was not death or imprisonment, but something perhaps more fitting, a life sentence of living with the hollowed-out shells of their ambitions, knowing, in their quietest moments, exactly who had engineered the void. They are haunted not by my ghost, but by the echo of their own downfall and the terrifying knowledge that it was authored by the one person they never thought to see. Their story is over. The book is closed, the cover dusty. Mine. Mine is a new volume. The pages are blank, the binding is strong, and the pen is finally in my own hand. And the first word I write is not revenge. It is quiet. It is enough. It is mine. Did that slow-burning vengeance resonate with you? If you were captivated by Elara's journey from porcelain doll to phantom architect of ruin, then you belong here in the community of Phantom Chronicles. That like button is your way of casting a vote for more tales of calculated retribution. Hit it now. Ring the notification bell so the shadows never leave you behind. You'll always know when our next story emerges. The conversation doesn't end with the telling. It begins. Was Celeste's social annihilation more satisfying than Marcus's legal unmasking? Could you have walked away without that final, wordless confrontation with Julian? The comment section is your arena. Debate, discuss, dissect. Our next narrative journey pulls us from the world of old money and into the electric pulse of new tech. Prepare for a different kind of ghost in the machine. Our next story is, until we meet again in the twilight, remember this. The most powerful hauntings are not of places, but of consciences. The quietest ghosts are the ones who rewrite the story. Stay sharp, stay listening. This has been Phantom Chronicles.